the White House and attacking Woodward. A remarkable turn of events, giving the elite status in the media as part of the duo that brought down President Richard Nixon in 1973. Excuse me. Basically, what we have here, as I've already said, is just you've got a couple of media folks who've gotten tired of being told what they can and can't report. And they see things that they deem as common sense issues, like, or how long are we going to keep drinking the Kool-Aid? How long are we going to continue to ignore the fact that the sequester not only was insisted upon by the Obama White House, but was in fact signed into law by Obama? Did he really think that it wouldn't happen, knowing how divided that the House and the Senate are? Did he really think this wouldn't happen as a result of how much he was going to insist that he have more increases in taxes? Not interested in cutting anywhere. Isn't it sad, ladies and gentlemen, that this budgetary issue only makes up roughly about 2.4% of the total spending that the government's going to make? And isn't it even further sad where they've chosen to make these cuts? Yeah, we're going to cut our training for our military who are about to go into hot spots. We are going to cut by releasing illegals that have been detained. And ladies and gentlemen, make no mistake about it, if they've detained any illegals, these aren't the warm and friendly, just trying to make a better life for our family illegals. These are the folks who have committed a crime since they've been here. And these are the people that are being released now, according to estimates, getting somewhere close to 6,000 total released, mostly in Arizona and New Mexico to this point. A lot of them in Arizona. And this was started before the sequester began. So the money to keep these people in check was there. Seems to me like a better use of the funds that you had available would have been to go ahead and finish the deportation before the sequester started, rather than say, okay, go be free. But once the sequester's over, please come back and report, because we'll need to continue the deportation process. A couple of quick notes. Congressional math. Always entertaining. Congresswoman Maxine Waters stirred some headlines among conservative areas when she made the statement last week that 170 million jobs will be lost to sequestration. In fact, what makes this interesting is that estimates for how many jobs are currently in the American economy range from 130 to 134 million. So, for those of us who are capable of math, unless those estimates are way off, or unless Maxine's counting jobs in Mexico as part of American jobs, I don't know what she's doing here. But 170 million jobs don't even exist in the United States right now. So how are you going to lose 170 million jobs when you only have 134 million jobs at best? Sequestration has been upon us since the end of last week. The March 1st deadline came, and it's went. The U.S. is officially sequestered. Part of the Budget Control Act of 2011 that was passed by Congress and signed by the occupier, the United States government will automatically slash $65 billion from its annual spending. Like I said before, that's roughly about 2.4% of total spending. Let's take a quick commercial break, and when we get back, we'll talk about how the government has been utilizing scare tactics to try to get you to force the Republicans to raise your taxes. Stay with us through the break. We'll be right back. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back. Thanks for staying with us. We're talking about sequestration at the moment, and more importantly, we're talking about the actual effects that it has as opposed to what you're being told it has. Bottom line, a lot of bald-faced lies have been put out there from our government. Starting with Education Secretary Arne Duncan. Has trouble explaining that several of the pink slips for teachers that have been sent out have absolutely nothing at all to do with sequestration. Nancy Pelosi's out there saying that Republicans are solely responsible for handing out pink slips. Question there is, really? Republicans created all of this by themselves. Is that it? A quote to keep in mind from 2011, I will veto any effort to get rid of those automatic spending cuts. Yep, that was the occupier, again, towards the late 2011 process. February 28th, the Senate rejected proposals from both Republicans and Democrats to stop the automatic budget cuts, set to go into effect at midnight last Friday. Why would the Senate, the democratically controlled Senate, reject proposals from both sides? While the Democratic plan would have raised taxes on high earners, the alternative, some Republicans were pushing, would have handed over Congress's power of the purse directly to the president. So both sides were throwing up tremendous power grabs, and yet neither one of those seemed interesting enough for Harry Reid and the Democrats to say, well, at least let's talk about this, debate it, and put it to a vote. Legislators in D.C. are still scrambling over the $85 billion in cuts in the rate of growth in spending. Not cuts in actual spending, but how much faster that spending's increasing. That's important to remember, boys and girls. For those of you who don't yet get it, for those of you who don't understand how the budgeting process has been going on since Obama took office, there has not actually been a budget. There has only been continuing resolutions, which means they've just basically agreed to keep doing what they have been doing, which has been growing government at an alarming, a ridiculously alarming rate. Under the sequester, instead of increasing spending by $1.7 trillion over the next 10 years, spending will increase by $1.6 trillion in that same time frame. So, just knocking out $100 billion, which, is a lot of money to you and me, but for the federal government, and when you're talking about trillions of dollars in total spending, not really that big of a deal. We're only talking about $44 billion that will be reduced each and every year over the next little bit. And please remember that the president's own budget proposal for fiscal year 2013 was $3.8 trillion. So these cuts won't even cover how much the federal government will borrow in 1 month alone. Now, of course, Obama has been out there doing the sequester warning dance, and he's continued to be doing basically what Michael Reagan called the Chicken Little tour, where the administration is going around basically saying that, as we learned, that a 2% reduction in growth of spending will mean 5,000 Border Patrol agents will be laid off. that this is in addition to TSA layoffs already announced even before the sequester. And these are all designed to bring air travel to a halt. All this tells us that the Obama sequester policy is identical to his immigration policy. No priority for border security, and no one can be sent home either. Currently, the president is flying about the country on his nationwide Fear Factor tour in an effort to make everyday Americans as hysterical regarding the sequester as the governing class is. He told a meeting of the National Governors Association at the White House that at some point we've got to do some governing. And certainly we can't keep careening from manufactured crisis to manufactured crisis. Well, you know what? Thank goodness he at least has the common sense to realize he should be saying it, even if he doesn't believe it. And there's no reason to think that he does, considering that he's typically behind most of these so-called manufactured crises. So-called because it's true. Whether you're talking about the fiscal cliff or now the sequester, these are completely manufactured by Congress and the White House. It is indeed time that the president stopped his campaign tour. I mean, this just a few numbers to throw out for you for what it's cost him to go around flying around the country saying this crap. There's a savings in him just stopping the travel. I mean, it cost $179,750 per hour to operate Air Force One. Now, like I said, it's past time for him to stop the campaign tour and start acting like a man who was elected to the Oval Office. Even though I don't believe he won the last election, he at least should act like he belongs in the White House if he's going to pretend like he is the president. Does the occupier truly believe that if he brought a proposal for $85 billion in targeted cuts to government programs that we can no longer afford? And if he brought that to the Republican-controlled House, that it wouldn't pass in an instant, therefore avoiding the sequester altogether? I mean, it could have been stopped up front if there was a targeted approach towards programs that we just don't need or just can't afford at the moment. Would the Republicans not have jumped at that? Actually, they probably would have. The problem would have been getting the democratically controlled Senate to even let that go to the floor. I mean, finding places to cut isn't even that hard. According to Bloomberg News, each year taxpayers have been subsidizing mega banks like J.P. Morgan, Bank of America, Citigroup, Wells Fargo, and Goldman Sachs to the tune of $83 billion. These banks have almost $9 trillion in assets, yet they're still getting handouts from the tax-paying citizens of this country. Instead of punishing taxpayers by making security lines 3-hour longs at the airport, why not end subsidies for rural airports that are used only by migrating ducks? The Washington Post writes, in an airport near Adamore, Oklahoma, that might be used 4 times a month by pilots needing to go to the bathroom. It's just one example. End the subsidies there. These smaller airports won't close down because of it. We'll just save federal taxpayer dollars. At any rate, that particular airport is kept open because Uncle Sam sends the state $150,000 a year. In a typical example of government bath, the state of Oklahoma spends $750,000 each year on maintenance and salaries to maintain the airport so it can get the $150,000 from the feds. Maybe that's part of the problem, folks. This airport is just one of 80 across the country with no paying customers, unless you count taxpayers, and no aircraft based on the field. Its only purpose is to flag down passing federal dollars. Hello, give us some of your money. Meanwhile, As one part of the federal government wastes money on vacant airports, the Navy says it does not have the money to refuel aircraft carriers.